All right, is that looking okay? Can people see that?
That looks
okay.
good.
Okay, great. All right. Well, welcome to the Better Breathers Club of BC, where people with chronic lung conditions and their supporters gather for information, sharing, and connection. And we're gathered here today to talk about the gut-lung connection. And before we get started, I'll do a quick land acknowledgement. So I am presenting today from the Lower Mainland area, from the lands of the Coast Salish people. And these are the unceded ancestral territories of the Squamish, Musqueam, and Tsleil-Waututh nations. To share the lands on which you live, work, and play, go ahead and pop that into the chat. I love seeing where people are coming from today. And as we get this Better Breathers Club underway, we'd like to know that this is a safe space. So everyone's free to share their thoughts, values, and opinions and ask questions without fear of judgment. And we thank you in advance for creating this safe space for everyone. The information shared here is for educational purposes, so it doesn't replace any professional medical advice from your care providers. And today we are talking about, as promised, the gut-lung connection with Keira Macfarlane. Keira is a registered dietitian for interior health. She specializes in diabetes and deals with people with chronic lung conditions as well. So thanks for joining us here today, Keira.
Thanks for having me.
And before we get started with Keira, let's go around our little Zoom room here. And as we go around, feel free to share anything about yourself, just a quick hello or where you're coming from today. And then we'd like to know what brings you to this discussion. And maybe let us know if you have any questions or what you hope to learn from today's talk. So I am going to stop the screen share as we go around the Zoom room here. So first in my Zoom room here, we have Deneen. Deneen, what brings you to the talk today?
I am very interested in hearing what you can tell me. In theory, I understand the things that were in the write-up that you gave me, but my body's not cooperating very well. And therefore, just, I guess, hoping to get some questions that I might ask. The doctors referred me to a whatever.
Gastroenterologist, yeah. Yep.
But it could be, I imagine, months or years if I ever, if I get to see the person. I'm not sure how long it takes, but that's why I'm here, in hopes of gaining some what should I say? Some new information. And so I look forward to hearing what you have to say.
Perfect. Thanks, Deneen. Next on my screen, I have Paula.
Hi, I'm on Vancouver Island, and I'm just here to learn how not to feel as yucky as I feel most of the time.
Fair. Thanks, Paula. And next I have Alan.
Well, I'm from Trail, and good afternoon to everybody. I'm just here to learn more about my COPD and what I can and can't do and things that affect it. So seems that anytime I get hooked up with any of our groups, I always learn something. So I'm looking forward to this.
Awesome. Thanks, Alan. Next I have Santa.
Hi, I'm from Vancouver. I once heard a talk when I was in the co-chair of Legacy of Airway Health, the patient engagement committee, and I heard from Dr. Emily Wickham giving us a talk on the food health, like what nutrition can do good to the for the asthma and COPD patients. So that's why I'm very interested in this topic, so that I can do more behavior modification and changes if I need to in the food I eat.
Awesome. Super proactive of you. I like this. Thank you. Next I have Selena.
Hi, I'm from Grand Forks. I have COPD as well as asthma, and I also suffer from GERDs and silent reflux. So it'll be good to learn how they all work with each other now to solve the issue out of all of them and have a better way of life with them.
Awesome. Thanks. Kira, are you taking notes here?
I'm
We've got a bunch of
trying
good
to.
questions. Okay. Next I have Martha.
Oh, I just wanted to maybe have some support in better eating, and and any hints for eliminating GERD by diet instead of pills, and I guess that's the main thing, and anything that can give me more energy would be great.
Awesome. Yeah, those are big ones. Okay. Thanks, Martha. Next I have Carolyn.
Hi, I'm from Trail. I have gut problems and and COPD, so anything I can learn would be really helpful.
Sounds good. Thanks for coming, Carolyn. Bobby, you're up next.
Yeah, I am Bobby. I'm from Port Coquitlam, BC, and I'm here. I've got COPD and asthma, and I do take medication for my GERD, but I'm here just to find out about this nutrition and this gut-lung connection and see how it works. I haven't really been that, or I haven't really been that interested in it before, so I've never really gone to one of these nutrition ones, and I think that I'll probably really benefit from it. So thanks.
Awesome. Thanks for coming out, Bobby. Next I have Dorothy.
Hi, I'm from Fruitvale, BC, and I'm part of Kelly's group. We meet every morning, every Wednesday morning, and she alerted us to this, and I thought, I'm always trying to figure out ways to lose weight and what have you, and so I thought, and I have COPD, so of course it all combines. So I thought if I could, it's just a win-win if I can figure things out. So
Awesome. Thanks, Dorothy. Thanks for joining us. Next I have, not sure. iPad 3, Deb Falls.
Hi,
Hello. What is your name, first of all, here?
Mike Falls.
Oh, Mike. Okay, perfect.
Yeah, in Sydney, BC. And I've got pulmonary fibrosis. I've had it for a while. And I'm trying to figure out a way in order to get more energy and kind of hopefully get off some of the medication and get rid of this brain fog or whatever. So trying to do something for that.
Yeah, and gain some weight.
Yeah, and gain weight because I've lost quite a bit.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you, Mike. Welcome.
Thanks.
And next I have Elsie. Hi, Elsie.
Hi, I'm from Abbotsford. I have pulmonary fibrosis. I've had it for 10 years now. Have stayed relatively healthy. I have been walking up to 15,000 steps a day, but it's cutting back a little bit this last little while. But I've done a lot of reading on the gut is the main problem for a lot of illnesses. And I'm just curious as to how that fits in with the pulmonary fibrosis.
Thanks, Elsie. Next I have Albert. And Albert, I see you're on mute, so if you don't want to, there we go. Great.
Yeah, here I am. Just up here in Kamloops, and I think majority of people have covered what I'm interested in. I'm just with all the different drugs and the weight gain and that kind of stuff. It's even though you're cutting back, it's still happening, right? So The more I can learn, the better.
Awesome. Yes, always a challenge. Thank you, Albert. Kelly, I'll open the floor to you.
Thanks. I'm Kelly. I'm a respiratory therapist in the Kootenay Boundary and work regularly with some of the lovely folks on here. And this just blends nicely with what we've started to talk about in our meetings this month, because we've been just starting to talk about nutrition, and it's a question that I've had from many of my patients over the years, just how they can support their COPD with better nutrition. And of course, we're bombarded all the time in headlines with don't eat this, eat that, take this supplement, don't take this. And it's very confusing and overwhelming for a lot of people. And there's a lot of misinformation out there and probably unnecessary recommendations too. As my dietitian that I worked with often says, rather than spending a whole bunch of money on supplements that are unregulated, spend it on good quality food. So anyway, great to have this discussion.
Nice. Awesome, Kelly. And thanks for sharing this opportunity with your folks. Next I have Elaine.
I'm from Sunshine Bay, which is 20 miles east of Nelson, British Columbia. And I'm about 30 pounds underweight, and I'm taking a medication to help me with that. It seems my body doesn't process proteins, carbohydrates, and fat the way it should. And so I'm just here to learn anything at all I can from the rest of you seem to be so knowledgeable.
Perfect. Thank you, Elaine. Next I have Jeannie. Oh, you're still on mute, Jeannie. Can you get the unmute? Oh, there you got it.
I'm from Toronto, and I feel I have pulmonary hypertension, pulmonary fibrosis secondary to scleroderma since 2010. I'd like to learn today how to reduce sodium intake as my pulmonary hypertension seems to be worsening, and also how to improve breathlessness and brain fog.
Perfect. Thank you, Jeannie. Next, I have Wendy. Wendy Martin.
Hi, I don't
there we
know.
go.
Jamie, I was diagnosed with COPD a year ago, and I'm just coming to terms with it. I decided I must look into anything that can help giving me energy and helping with indigestion and all these sort of things that have come up recently. So this is a good start.
Perfect. Thanks for joining, Wendy. We hope we can give you some answers and some tips here. Next, I have Lisa.
Good afternoon. I'm in Victoria and I have asthma, and I have noticed some trigger foods that make me wheeze and cough for sure, that are a very direct response, but I'm curious about the more indirect long-term foods that can be problematic or that should be added. And I loved hearing people talk about reflux and silent reflux because that's starting to be an issue for me. And if there's something connected there with my asthma, I really want to learn about that. Thank you.
Awesome. Oh, bringing up some really good things here. Next, I have Karen. Karen, welcome to the call. Is there anything that you're hoping to gain from today, or do you have any questions before we get started?
No questions.
Okay. All right. Thank you for joining us. And last but not least, I have Corey. And you don't have to unmute or
Oh, there we
there
go.
you go.
I was just trying to figure that out. Hi, everybody.
Perfect. Hi, Corey.
Hi.
Yeah, I'm from Kelowna, BC. Well, as of like this week, moving from Penticton. So I have asthma and IBS and GERD. And I've been reading a lot about like the gut lung connection. So I'm kind of just seeing if we can separate fact from fiction and learn a bit more about it.
Awesome. Thanks, Corey. Well, thank you, everyone. Well, that, that sure gives you a lot to work with there, Keira.
Sure does.
We can't promise we'll hit everything, but let's get started and let's see where our journey takes us, shall we?
Right. We'll go ahead and share my screen here. Make sure everyone can see this. Let's get back to the beginning. All right. So, yeah, my name is Keira. I'm a registered dietitian. I'm also a certified diabetes educator. So, these are both kind of areas that I work in. And the goal today is really just to chat about kind of the gut-lung axis, it's called, which is really kind of the connection between like our gut health and our lung health. And I noticed there were a lot of questions kind of relating to GERD or reflux, a few on like weight, both trying to gain weight, both trying to lose weight side of it. Also a question about sodium. I probably won't hit those in this presentation, but if we have time, I can definitely chat about them afterwards. Because this is mostly kind of trying to connect the gut health with the lung health piece specifically there, and more looking at kind of gut microbiome, lung microbiome, the bacteria kind of piece of it all. And if you do have questions, feel free to just like speak up and interrupt me. I don't mind at all. I know sometimes if we don't say our questions right away, we might forget them. So that's not a problem for me. And yeah, we'll kind of dive into things. So really starting off with gut microbiota, it really is giving us a new insight into lung disease. And what we've learned is that lung diseases are usually accompanied by dysbiosis of intestinal flora, so intestinal bacteria, and an immune inflammatory response. So, what does this mean exactly? Dysbiosis would be an imbalance of bacteria within the gut. So, meaning either that we've lost some of our beneficial or our good bacteria, we might have an overgrowth of potentially pathogenic or bad bacteria, or we have a loss of our overall bacteria diversity. So meaning that there's not a lot of strains in there. And so generally what makes up a good healthy gut microbiome would be one that has lots of the good bacteria, not very much of the bad bacteria, and just lots of different species of bacteria. That's what seems to benefit us the most. And so why would we have this dysbiosis? Why would that occur? It could be because of medications, and specifically one that comes to mind would obviously be antibiotics. It could be through changes to our diet. It can also be stress, illness, all kinds of things. And we do know that this intestinal flora or the bacteria and its metabolites, so the things the bacteria produce, are directly or indirectly involved in immune regulation of ourselves in lung disease. So what goes on in our gut bacteria as well as our lung bacteria affects our immune system. And problems in gut barrier can lead to some of this bacteria moving into the bloodstream, causing a sustained inflammatory response, which overall can cause lung injury, pulmonary fibrosis, and can even eventually lead to carcinogenesis or lung cancer. And so inflammation specifically is not necessarily bad. It can have a purpose. So like acute short-term inflammation, like you cut your finger, that inflammation is going to bring things to the side of your finger to help it heal, to help your blood clot, to help deal with bacteria and things there. That's inflammation that we want to have. The inflammation we don't want to have is that chronic long-term inflammation. And that's what's, of course, most commonly seen in asthma and lung diseases. And that's where over time, the inflammation, it leads to injuries to some of the tissues. It leads to these responses that we don't want. So we know that our gut microbiota and our bacteria within our gut certainly is related to this inflammation. And having a healthier, a more diverse microbiome can generally lead to a bit less of this inflammation. And just as well, something to highlight is the exact mechanism of action for this gut-lung crosstalk is really quite unclear at this point in time. So we don't know exactly how they're connecting with each other and how the gut microbiome affects the lung biome and vice versa, but we know that they're connected and we know that one impacts the other. So lung diseases that have been found to be associated with gut microbiome would be pulmonary hypertension, COPD, lung cancer, actually COVID-19 seems to be as well, and then asthma. So I think pretty much kind of almost everything people have brought up here. And so one specifically that we have a bit of info about would be the role of lung and gut microbiota in asthma. And so lung and gut microbiota play several important roles in the development, the regulation, and the maintenance of healthy immune responses. And we know that that dysbiosis, or that, unfavorable changes in our gut microbiome and the dysregulation of microbiota-related immune processes affects the onset of disease, clinical characteristics, and our response to treatment. And an increasingly large body of evidence suggests the role for bacteria in asthma, but further studies are needed. So we don't know, what species are problematic of bacteria. And is asthma actually what's causing the dysbiosis, or is the dysbiosis the cause of asthma? So these are all things that research is still really trying to figure out. So this was a really interesting diagram that I came across in some of my research for this presentation, and it's really looking at gut microbiota as a new insight into lung diseases. So this gut-lung communication is really where kind of this dysbiosis and problems with the gut microbiota can possibly play a pathophysiological role in lung diseases. And again, by altering our immune response, our hormones, our metabolic homeostasis. And we know gut microbiota influences the gut and lung immune systems through, some mechanisms that seem closer together, and then otherwise long-term interactions. And so these can cause direct effects or indirect effects. But again, this is a lot of stuff we don't know a lot about yet, but we know that it's all interconnected. And again, some lung diseases we saw associated: pulmonary hypertension, COPD, lung cancer, COVID, asthma. And they're thinking that specific gut microbiota and metabolites, so again, the products that these bacteria make, might be biomarkers in studying lung diseases. So things we might be able to look at in our lab work and things like that. And so what can we do about this? How can we help our, gut-lung axis? How can we fix this? So we look at, of course, our diet. Probiotics might be an option, and I will touch on all these in much more detail. There's also looking at like fecal transplants from, perhaps a healthy family member to yourself, and there's some thought that might be helpful. Again, being studied still. And then, of course, looking at bioaccumulation of different drugs. So especially, many of us may end up on medications very long term for asthma, COPD, lung diseases. They're wondering if over the long term, some of the accumulation of these drugs might have an effect too. And these are all pieces that we're not super certain about yet. So kind of what I found in my research is that we know there's a connection between gut health and lung health, but we don't know a lot about it yet. So really it leaves us with many questions. And so the question that it left me with was, well, okay, we know there's a connection. Well, what can we do about it? What can we do now to make a difference that we know is going to help, but, while they're still researching this and figuring it out more? And so some strategies that come to mind to improve our gut microbiome would be, looking at our diet and specifically having more fiber. And something I found that was interesting is like people who eat more fiber actually have a decreased risk of lung cancer, which I thought was quite interesting. And so we know more fiber and a variety of fiber helps improve our gut health. And so what this might look like is just aiming for a variety of fiber-rich fruits, vegetables, whole grains, legumes, and trying to have these every day in our diet. Probiotics, so these are foods or drinks that have some of this beneficial bacteria in them. So fermented foods like, kimchi, yogurt, kefir, kombucha, those kind of drinks, having that introduces some of this good bacteria into our bodies. And supplements I wanted to make a note about is we're not yet sure which strains of probiotics and what doses are helpful in terms of lung health specifically. So this is an area that we're still not quite sure about, and we don't have the evidence yet to make specific recommendations. But if you do have certain conditions diagnosed, such as IBS or other things, there is evidence for some of those in terms of probiotics and which ones are helpful. And a really good website that I like is Probioticchart.ca. And what it does is it goes through the different strains of probiotics, the different products, how many they call them colony forming units, how many bacteria, and they show what evidence exists and for what specific conditions. So yeah, like one I can think of is IBS. Definitely there's some evidence in probiotics for that. So if you have a gut condition that you know of that's diagnosed, the probioticchart.ca can be a really good place to look if you are interested in trying a probiotic for that specifically. But as of right now, we don't really have data for probiotics and gut and lung health specifically. And then one of the other possible strategies, again, they're looking at was that like fecal microbiota transplant, which is where they would transplant the feces of a healthy person into somebody with these conditions. And where that gets used nowadays is treatment of things like, if you've heard of C. diff or Clostridium difficile, it's kind of a hospital-acquired infection typically. And if people end up not responding to antibiotics, we actually will use something like this to help treat people, and it can be quite effective. So it might seem like gross and weird and out there, but it is being used in the medical community currently, and it very well may be something helpful in the future for this. And I did see there was a question or two in the chat. For some reason, my mouse is not letting me open these.
It's okay. I've posted the probioticchart.ca and the link.
Okay, thank you.
For questions. Okay, I'll monitor the chat.
Awesome. And then other dietary strategies to improve our microbiota would specifically be really trying to increase our fiber intake. And what this might look like is, really making sure specifically to include either vegetables or fruit in every meal that you have. And I would counter that further and try to include them in maybe every meal and snack that you have. And if you're having a meal like a lunch or a dinner, a place to start would be considering that healthy plate method. So I don't know if anyone's seen it. I couldn't find a good picture of it this morning while I was kind of touching this up, but it's the new Canada's Food Guide, and it's where it shows this big plate, and half of the plate is like vegetables and fruit, a quarter is protein foods, and then a quarter is carbohydrates. So that can be a really good structure as a way to set up your meals and set up your plate to know that you're having kind of the foods that you need to have. And that's also going to help you get a lot of fiber in, which we know is good for our gut health. So that can be certainly a place to start. And then if you're looking at your protein foods, many plant-based proteins are also very good sources of fiber. So things like beans, lentils, legumes, tofu, tempeh, textured vegetable protein, nuts and seeds. These are all fantastic sources of protein, but they also are providing us with some of this beneficial fiber that we know is also good for our gut health. So something to try would be, if you're someone who's usually having your meat, potatoes, vegetables, well, maybe you try and have a bit of a plant-based protein once in a while, or maybe you try like a meatless Monday, for example, or just something of that type. And then when we look at our carbohydrate choice, we want to try to choose one that, again, has a bit more fiber in it. And this, can be things like whole grain bread and bread products, potatoes, sweet potatoes. These are all good options. And for the whole grain carbs, yeah, it would be things like bread products, pasta, rice, quinoa, any other grains out there that you like. And if you're looking at ingredient lists to confirm, the words you'd look for would be like whole wheat or whole grain. Those are going to tell you for sure if it is a whole grain product. And so for things like pasta, some good options would be Catelli is a brand, and they make what's called like a smart pasta, and it's a white pasta, but they've gone and added some vegetable fibers back to it. So if you don't love the whole grain pastas, even something like that is a good choice because you're getting a bit more of that fiber. And where this kind of relates, more than just gut health, which of course we know that gut health is related to our lung health, but having more fiber is good for our cholesterol and our heart health. It's good for our blood sugars, which, can certainly be an issue, especially if you end up on prednisone or things like that. So having more fiber is just generally a good thing overall. The other thing I would say here is, do try and increase your fiber intake slowly. Don't try and, overnight jump from like not a lot of fiber to a ton of fiber, because you're not going to feel good. Probably going to get a bit bloated or constipated. Maybe you'll have diarrhea the other side of it. So like slowly work your way up in terms of fiber. And then as well as you increase your fiber, do make sure you're staying on top of your hydration. That's important as well for, to keep things moving properly.
Keira, can I ask a question here?
Yeah.
With increasing fiber, people use those like a Metamucil or something as well. What are your thoughts on those?
Yeah.
As a quick, easy way.
Yeah. So those fiber supplements, like a Metamucil or like a psyllium fiber is what that one is, they certainly can be helpful. And so if you feel like you're kind of doing what you can in terms of food, maybe you can't tolerate eating a lot of fiber without having some symptoms, I would certainly give something like that a try. We know that psyllium fiber, which specifically is the Metamucil, that type of fiber, it can help our cholesterol, it can help our gut health a bit. So certainly would be worth a try. I'd probably go the food route first, like try and have more fiber in your diet that way. But also something like a Metamucil or a psyllium fiber would be a very good idea too.
Okay, thank you. Yeah, thanks.
And so in terms of kind of those diet strategies, we just know that in general, like having lots of fiber and a diversity of fiber sources in our diet improves our gut health. And so fiber containing foods, what these do is they feed the good gut bacteria that we have. And so the more of these foods we eat, the more we tend to feed that bacteria, the more that bacteria kind of grows and you get more of it. And that's a good thing because that can take place of some of that. There's no more room for some of that bad bacteria to be there. And so eating more of these like high fiber foods can really selectively improve the bacteria within our gut. And so when we eat these fibrous foods, we're helping feed them, we're helping select for them. And then these good bacteria tend to make good kind of metabolites or byproducts, which again can help with our gut health, our lung health. There's some notes that that can help reduce inflammation. So these are all good things to do. And if you're really trying to up kind of your fiber intake, your plant intake, there's a challenge out there. It's called the 30 plants per week challenge. And it's exactly what it sounds like. So the goal is trying to eat 30 different plants per week. And this might sound crazy, but what counts is like anything coming from a plant. So vegetables, fruits, grains, beans, legumes, tofu, soy, nuts, seeds, spices, tea, coffee, all of it counts. So suppose you maybe some cereal with soy milk and some fruit this morning. Well, like all of those would actually be considered plants. Like that soy milk coming from a plant. The cereal, the grains is coming from a plant. The fruit obviously came from a plant. So it's not just like vegetables and fruit, but yeah, you want to try to, if you can, reach that kind of 30 plants per week. And that's the amount that's been seen in research to be kind of most helpful in selecting for that kind of good bacteria within our gut. So if anyone feels like trying that, it's a really good challenge. And it's also a good way to kind of audit how you're eating and seeing like, do I have some variety? How's that going?
That's very cool. We have a question in the chat too.
Ooh,
So in
yeah.
upping the fiber content, and you did just mention cereal. So is eating cereal a good way to increase fiber content?
It certainly can be. Sorry, I'm trying to like move away. The sun
Oh,
keeps
sorry, the sun's, I see that.
I'm just moving over.
Blind you.
It is. In terms of like cereals and grains, absolutely that can be a good way to get some fiber in. And I would just try to look for a cereal that has some different whole grains in it. And then other things you can do to help is like, adding a bit of like ground flax seeds or hemp hearts or chia seeds or things we know have some fiber to them. Or maybe you stick a little bit of bran buds into your cereal that you're having to again give it more fiber. And then you're also adding another plant to your diet there. So yes, cereals, grains, those would absolutely count in terms of increasing your fiber.
Okay, thanks.
And
That's
then I was gonna
just
say
as easy
too,
as eating the Metamucil, right? So maybe that's the
there you go. That would be one.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
Can
And
I?
then
Can I add something?
Sure.
When I have alpha-1 antitrypsin problems, and what I didn't realize till when I went to get Metamucil, I had used Metamucil a lot when I was younger, and I went to pick up some at the drugstore, and the dentist said, no way. It can go straight to your liver and cause problems. You should not touch it. So I don't think anybody has alpha, but I didn't know that until about 2 years ago, and it was what he told me, whether it's right or not. That was his word. He said, "No way, you can't touch that."
I can't say I've heard that one specifically. Like I'd have to look into it to be honest.
It would be.
But if a like a healthcare professional who knows you have that condition was concerned about it, then fair enough. I would say that's a good reason to look into it further. Tina, do you have thoughts on that one?
Yeah, I haven't heard that either, but and was that from the pharmacist you were saying?
Yes. Yeah, he had we had been talking about other things, and he knew because of other reasons that I had been to him, and just said, I said, "Oh, can you show me where the Metamucil is?" And he said, "What? You are not, that's off the list for you."
Yeah, interesting. I mean, the alpha-1 can certainly cause liver problems on its own.
So
is Metamucil quite tasking on the liver, Keira? Do you know?
Not in my experience. Really, it's
Yeah.
just like a type of fiber that we can eat, and it mostly just it just goes through the digestive tract. I don't think it would have any involvement with the liver as far as my understanding of it.
Yeah, Denny, maybe throw that one through by your respirologist or even your GP. I'd be very interested to hear what that connection is all about, what that person was thinking. Yeah.
What they would say on it. I don't think, like, I'm much more lung affected than I am in the liver area, but well, it's always the problem. You don't have very much time to ask any questions when you're talking to a specialist, but I should jot that down and just see where the pharmacist got the idea. I have found pharmacists are quite knowledgeable quite often when it comes to things, and have picked up things that my GP, not my GP presently, but GPs in the past, that's gone way over their head.
Yeah. Yeah, it can affect, so the alpha-1 can affect your digestive enzymes. So maybe it's in relation to that.
Yeah.
Anyway, I'll try and remember to ask and find and see.
There's a big money question, Denise.
Yeah, that's for
Take
sure.
it to the pros. Yeah. We'll see what we can find out and we'll get back to you though, okay?
Okay. Thank you.
In our digging. Okay. Yep.
And then the other thing I wanted to touch on, obviously, the cost of food is quite expensive right now, especially things like fruits and vegetables. So, having frozen, canned, that's just as healthy as fresh. The only thing I would look for in the canned is what are they canned in? So if it's canned vegetables, trying to find ones that are canned without salt or with less salt. If all you can get are ones canned with salt, that's actually okay as long as you drain them and then give them a really good rinse with water. That takes a lot of the extra salt off. But yeah, frozen, frozen, canned, just as healthy as fresh. So do feel free to use that for like fruits and vegetables. Especially if you might be living alone, you might not go through them super quickly. That's also a really, really helpful strategy for that. And then if you are having like the beans, legumes, those things, the dried are a really good and inexpensive option too. They just take a little bit of planning, right? So if you are gonna like have beans, maybe for dinner, you might need to soak them like the night before to make sure they're gonna be good to go. But yeah, those are just things to keep in mind because I know eating a lot of fruits and vegetables and things like that can be really expensive and cost can certainly be a problem there. But yeah, I'm curious if anyone is thinking of taking part in this kind of 30 plants challenge. I'm actually thinking I might try it myself just to see as an audit of kind of like where I'm at and, can I improve in this? And yeah, so I don't know if anyone wants to join me in doing it, but I think I'm gonna give it a try.
I guess my only concern with the commercially canned, especially the
Mm,
fruits, is the high fructose syrup that they use to
right.
can it. I mean,
Yes.
we do our own canning here, and I know how much sugar goes into our syrup. Theirs is crazy, almost double of
Mhm.
what we use.
Yes, so definitely in canned fruit, very important to look at what they're canned in. Certainly canned in syrup, like you said, they're gonna have a lot of sugar. If you can get them like canned in juice, it's a little better. If you can get them canned in water, that's certainly best. If you can can them yourselves, then that's a great way to kind of keep on top of it. But yes, that's an excellent point as well. If you're looking at canned fruit, is what are they canned in? Because that certainly makes a difference to their nutrition overall. Mhm.
Can I ask about gluten-free options? Gluten-free
Sure.
cereal and gluten-free bread. Now, how does that happen with the fiber?
Yeah, so in that case, the fiber is just going to come from different sources. So normally, like our bread and cereal are made from kind of wheat-based products, which gluten is actually just a protein within wheat. But there are some people who either have celiac disease and they can't eat it, or they might just be intolerant to it and they don't feel good when they eat it. So if you're looking at gluten-free products, I would just look at the fiber content and try to pick the one with the most fiber to it. A lot of the gluten-free products tend to be kind of rice-based and they don't necessarily have a lot of fiber to them. So this is kind of one of those places where you just, I think, do the best you can with what you have. And if you can find gluten-free products that have a bit more fiber, then that's excellent. But yeah, that's where kind of reading labels can really come in handy there. And, if you're having like rice, maybe you try to pick the brown rice or the wild rice because it's going to have more fiber than like the white rice. Or, if you're looking at other grains like maybe a quinoa or something like that, that'll give you a bit more fiber. So it'll just be coming from different sources is where some of that fiber comes from. But yeah, I would just use labels kind of as your tool there and just try to get the one with like the most fiber to it. Yeah, that's
Awesome. And then this 30 plants per week challenge is not to do with quantity, it's just this variety of having the 30 plants.
Yes, absolutely. So it's all about kind of just this diversity piece. So it doesn't have to be a specific amount of anything. Like as you'll see here, seeds, spices, those are included here. So even if you use like a little bit of cilantro in your meal, like that counts as another plant that you're having. So the amount's really not important. It's just that you're trying to get that variety, trying to eat some different things. That's the whole goal of it. Yeah.
Very cool. I like it. It's a creative challenge.
Yeah. So, take-home messages is we know our gut health and lung health are interconnected. And we know some of the mechanisms, but for the most part, it's an area that's still being studied. And I think over the years, there's going to be a lot more info coming out. We do know, however, that improving our gut health tends to have positive impacts for our health in general, as well as our lung health. And some strategies out there to improve that gut health specifically would be, again, looking at more fiber. And if you are someone who, maybe tends to have some constipation, bloating, diarrhea, I would work on slowly upping that fiber. I wouldn't do it all at once. You want to give your body some time to get used to it. And then I would also make sure that you're staying nice and hydrated while you're doing that. Some strategies could be aiming for, having a fruit or a vegetable in every meal, trying to choose those whole grain or higher fiber carbohydrate foods, trying to have some plant-based proteins more often. And then if you do have a specific condition that you've been diagnosed with, a probiotic supplement might be right for you. And that's where I would kind of consult your healthcare team or also look at that Probioticchart.ca. And that's all I've got for this one.
So, Keira, how much fiber should somebody have in a day?
So the recommended amount, it works out to something like 14 grams per 1,000 calories. And that's not a super helpful metric. So what I would look at is like for women trying to get to like at least 20 grams, and for men probably trying for at least 25 grams. And again, this is something where if you feel like doing a bit of an audit on yourself, like you can use, there's different free apps and things out there where you can track your food for a bit just to see like how your fiber intake is. And that's a way that you can kind of find out how you're doing there. And again, I wouldn't really recommend like tracking stuff all the time. I don't think there's a need for that. But if you're wanting to do it as a bit of an audit, as a bit of a like learning experience to see how you're doing, then that can be a really good way. But that would be, those numbers are kind of a minimum. So really the more fiber you can get in, like the better. But yeah, I would say for women, try to go for at least 20 grams and men at least 25 grams, but more is better.
Awesome. Thanks. All right. Keira, maybe I will take back the screen share for a quick fun thing if we're up for it before we open the floor to more questions and discussions, because we know that's coming. All right. So thank you, Keira. That was amazing. That was like a whole lot of information. We'll give people a moment to digest it.
Yeah.
And as a way to recap, we've got a quiz. Your favorite thing, everyone. Come on. All right. So the quizzes are multiple choice. And to show your answer, just hold up whichever finger is the answer. Okay, they're numbered. The answers are numbered. First question, what can cause dysbiosis or the imbalance of gut bacteria? Number 1 is infection. Number 2 is stress. Number 3 is illness. And number 4 is all of the above. Hold up your fingers. I'm seeing a lot of 4s there. You are correct. Number 4. Woohoo! Yeah, all of the above, all of the above. So if we can reduce these things, hopefully we can keep our gut bacteria in check. And another question here. This is a true or false. Chronic or long-term inflammation, which can be caused by a gut bacteria imbalance, is bad. 1 is true, 2 is false, 3 you're not sure.
I would say 1.
We're seeing some 1s. This is true. Yes. So inflammation is not good, especially when it's chronic or over long term. And if we do have some gut microbe imbalance, we can lead to more inflammation. So you want to use this as motivation to keep our inflammation in check, especially because we know that inflammation will happen in the lungs as well. Right? So keep our breathing symptoms down by reducing inflammation with happy gut bacteria. All right. Which of these lung conditions are associated with gut micro or are related to gut microbiota? Pulmonary hypertension, COPD, lung cancer, COVID-19, or all of the above? Yeah, everyone's got it. All of the above. Number 5. Yeah, so they are starting to make this connection. And as Keira was saying, it's pretty new that people have figured this out. Took us a while, but we got there. And so they're still learning a lot. So stay tuned. Like the information that you're getting here today is kind of cutting edge because it is just coming out. And there's still a lot of questions that researchers have, that physicians have. So you got the questions and so do they. So luckily they're looking into it and the gut microbiome has got people's attention right now. So now's a good time to find out more and stay tuned. All right, the gut-lung crosstalk is a new and I blew this. A new and somewhat poorly understood concept. True or false?
That would be true. That would be true.
I guess it's true. All right, last question of the quiz. What can we do to improve our gut microbiome? Eat more fiber with every meal and even snacks. Eat a variety of fiber-rich foods, maybe a 30 plant week challenge. Probiotics, fermented foods or supplements, and the lovely, wonderful, exciting fecal microbiota transplant, or all of the above.
Oh.
Yes, all the above. Yes, even number 4. And if you're looking for more, we do have a Poplar online clinic. So if you did want to book with Keira, you can do so online. She is open to having one-on-one appointments. So take a look at our Poplar clinic. And the other thing I want to mention, now is the time, if you're thinking of learning to play the harmonica, because it helps your breathing. We teach pursed lip breathing when we play the harmonica, and it can strengthen respiratory muscle strength. So this is fully funded by the BC Lung Foundation. So this is a free program. It's 5 weeks. The next one starts on March 3rd. So if you are interested, reach out soon, because we have to do an intake and we need to send you a harmonica and a player's book. So our phone number is right there, and our email address if you would like to reach out. And as we like to say, get out there and live your best lung life. And I will open the floor for questions in the last little bit here, because I feel like some of this discussion could go on a little bit. So Keira, we'll try not to keep you too long. But let's open the floor. This is where the meat and potatoes usually happens here. So who's first? Elaine's got a question. Go for it.
That phone number for the harmonica.
Yeah, I missed it too.
No problem. I'm gonna put it in the chat.
Oh, okay, thank you.
And I'll read it off. Typing it. So it's 236-361-3480. 236-361-3480. Give us a call. We've still got some spots, and it is super fun program. Yeah.
I was promoting it in our group this morning. So.
Great. Yeah. Yeah.
What's the date on that? March 3rd?
March 3rd, and the classes are on Mondays at 1 o'clock. It's basically all the Mondays in March. And Paula was in our program. Yeah. And
I took it. It was a lot of fun.
Elsie, yeah. Awesome.
Our group is starting a band or a choir or something, apparently, right, Kelly?
We'll see. Yet to be determined. We'll all be singing with our microphones muted.
Yep, that's how we play the harmonica. So you don't have to. Yeah. Awesome. Oh.
Okay.
Silence.
I was gonna say, Tina, I've opened up some spots, mostly like afternoons, evenings.
Okay.
In the Poplar clinic. So if there's anyone that is interested in booking, feel free to take a look. And if those times don't work, you can always reach out, and like we can figure something else out to make it work too.
Yeah, totally. And you can call that same number and we'll help connect you with Keira.
Yeah. So if anyone does want to chat one-to-one, or you just feel like there's things that would be more helpful than just a group, then do feel free to look into that.
So you've given us all the foods that are good for our gut. Is there anything that we should be avoiding?
Okay, I like this question. So my premise as a dietitian very much is looking at like what can we add to our diet to make things a bit healthier, rather than looking at like what do we need to remove, what do we need to stay away from. But we know specifically that, the foods that are high in sugar but really don't have much nutrition, like foods like that are kind of the ones we want to steer clear of. So one of the groups I would consider would be like what we call like ultra processed foods. And those are foods that, there's been a large degree of processing to them and where they really don't have much nutrition left. Those would be the kind of things that are not beneficial for us. And it's not so much that these foods specifically are like bad for our gut health or cause negative consequences, but it's more that not having that fiber and those vitamins and minerals and nutrients, that's what's not helpful. So if we don't eat a lot of those foods, then we're not feeding that good bacteria. We're not selecting for that good bacteria to be there. And then that allows more room for more of those bacteria we don't necessarily want to go in there. So it's not that there's any foods specifically that are going to be bad as far as gut health goes. So keep that in mind. But more it's just we want to try to fill our plates with more of this nutritious food that's good for us. And so kind of those ultra processed foods that we might want to steer clear of. When I think of those, that's going to be like, your chips, your chocolate bars, instant noodles, pop, like those kind of foods. And it's not that you can't have those foods ever, because again, I don't like to practice that way, but it's more so that we want to try to fill most of our diet with those healthy foods that we know are good for us and provide lots of benefits in terms of gut health, but in terms of just our health in general. So that would be kind of the way I would look at it, is that you're just trying to fill your plate with more of those good healthy foods and maybe have a bit less of some of those other foods that don't provide so much nutrition. But if it's a special occasion and you want to go have, your birthday cake or your instant noodles or you're sick or whatever it might be, like that's perfectly okay. But it's just we want our overall picture of our food to be these healthier foods that we know are good for us and provide that kind of nutritional benefit. So I know that was like quite a long-winded answer, but hopefully that kind of answered that.
That's interesting that you bring up instant noodles. You know what? It's not something that would have really crossed my mind as like, oh, this is really bad for me compared to other pastas. Can you talk about that a little bit?
Yeah, it really just has to do with like the degree of processing and then the amount of sodium present. Those are like the two big things there. So it's like not only are you really not getting much in the way of like fiber or protein or vitamins or minerals, but you're also getting like a massive dump of sodium. Like if you look at most of them, the amount of sodium we want to not exceed in a day is 2,300 milligrams, which is the equivalent of about a teaspoon of salt. So it's not much. Some of these products will have over 2,000 milligrams per little cup of noodles. Like it's an astonishing amount of salt. So again, like once in a while you're sick. Like I always want to eat that kind of thing when I'm sick. So like, once in a while it's fine, but just as part of a regular basis, like that's not necessarily something you want to eat. And you'd be better off like, yeah, making your own noodles of some sort, maybe adding some vegetables to it. Like, you know, making it better for you that way. It can still be a very similar product, but just those kind of instant noodles specifically and the soup mixes that come with them, it's not so great.
Thanks. Yeah, the salt. Wow.
It's
good call. Yeah.
Be surprising.
Yeah. Yeah. Thank you.
What is GERD?
So GERD stands for gastroesophageal reflux disease. And so basically it's people that get like heartburn or reflux, generally in response to eating food.
Okay.
Or lying down or things like that. And it can be problems that your stomach is just simply making too much acid. It can also be that, the sphincter at the top of your stomach doesn't work super well at keeping that acid in place, like where it should be. So often it can be treated a little bit with diet. Like certain people notice if they have a lot of caffeine, that might trigger it. Chocolate, I've heard, can be a trigger, unfortunately. Or if you eat a lot of like acidic foods, that can make things feel worse. That's kind of, we don't have a lot we can do from a diet perspective for it. Like sometimes if it is your body just producing too much acid, then the treatment would be what we call like PPIs or medications to reduce the acidity of the stomach. That's usually, unfortunately, the best treatment we have for them. But it kind of depends on the cause. Yeah.
Yeah, we usually do have information because asthma and GERD, they're associated for sure, quite a common pairing of conditions. Yeah, and like Keira was saying, it's the acid stuff and things that cause acid, coffee, tea, anything caffeinated, chocolate, yeah, tomato sauce, all the
All the
good
good stuff,
things.
really.
Yeah. Alcohol.
Yeah, that's another big one.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Mhm.
All right. Awesome. Well, thank you so much, Keira. I see people are dropping out. They're saying goodbye in the chat here, but they're saying thank you, thank you, thank you.
Yeah,
So
thanks
this
for
was, yeah, this was amazing. Thank you so much for sharing all of your knowledge and experience with us. So I'll aim to share these links with everyone when we post it, post the recording as
Well,
well.
thank you for having me, and thanks for all the good questions. I do really appreciate it. It's always more fun when there's a lot of questions than when I'm just like,
Awesome.
Thank you so much, Keira. Thank you.